Last year, I hopped on the Sapsan train. It is Russia's modern high-speed train service from Moscow to St. Petersburg. The ride was awesome. In about 4 hours, I was zipping from one city center to the next, covering 615 kilometers super quickly. And what made it even better, it was the price. The tickets were seriously affordable, especially for how comfortable and how quick the ride was. I just settled into my seat, watched the countryside fly by, and arrived feeling great and ready to check out the city. No need to wait in hours, no long security lines, no long drives to the airport. It was just city center to city center. Super convenient. This experience isn't unusual all over the world. It's something that is normal in countries all over the world. It's how people get around. They have high-speed lines connecting all sorts of big cities, even regional and small cities. Long-distance trains exist, and they're quite affordable, and it's how people get around all over the world. Okay, so now let's talk about the situation here in the United States. I live not too far from Los Angeles, and if I want to get to San Francisco, well, it's about the same distance from Moscow to St. Petersburg. And in my head, a direct train would be perfect. It would be fast, it would be efficient, direct, easy, right? But the truth is that here in America, especially for a route like LA to San Francisco, there simply isn't a direct train. And that usually blows people's minds, especially Europeans, when they come to visit the United States. They're used to good train networks in other countries. If I really wanted to take a train, it'd be a whole adventure. First, I'd have to take a bus from Los Angeles to Bakersfield, which is about a 2-hour drive. Then from there, I would finally catch Amtrak's train to head up to the Bay Area. Don't get me wrong, the train ride itself may have some beautiful views, but the whole trip is anything but direct. With the bus and the transfers and the train moving way slower than a high-speed one, you're looking at a journey that can take around 8 hours or maybe more, depending on the connections. Compare that to a 4-hour train, or in Russia or in China. In America, for this route, it just feels like a massive time-wasting headache, and it's not a convenient choice. What if I wanted to go from Los Angeles to Las Vegas? Even though tons of people drive there all the time, in about 4 hours they get there, I'd be out of luck if I wanted a train. There are no direct passenger trains right now. They're trying to build a high-speed rail line. For years they've been saying that, but for now, if I can't drive, flying is my only option. And it just goes to show, for short and medium trips in the US, there aren't really any good trains. What about really long distances? Like if I wanted to travel from Los Angeles all the way to Chicago, a truly cross-country journey. Yes, Amtrak does have direct train services. For those of you who aren't from the United States, Amtrak is the United States National Passenger Railroad Service. And I might think, okay, awesome, a direct train. But then I look closer, and first of all, the time. This isn't a quick trip at all. It takes roughly 60 hours. 3 full days, almost 3 full days, from Los Angeles to Chicago. That's a huge chunk of time, especially compared to a 4-hour flight. Second, the cost. It can be a really cool experience, but it can be extremely expensive. A round-trip ticket can cost easily over $500. Compare that to flying, where I can usually find a round-trip flight for a fraction of that price, getting me there in just 4 hours. So for most people, the time and the money just make flying a clear winner. It's a clear, better choice. So for short and medium distances, driving is a better choice. For long distances, flying is a better choice. That brings us to the core of the issue. Why is intercity passenger train travel in America so fundamentally different and much less appealing than in other parts of the world? In most countries, taking a train from one city to another is not just an option, it's often the preferred method, or it's more convenient and more environmentally friendly and less stressful than flying or driving. For example, China. Their railway system is absolutely massive and always getting better. They have the biggest high-speed rail network on the planet. In 2024, China's national railways had a record-breaking 4 billion passenger trips. Sometimes they even hit around 21 million passengers in a single day. And Russia, even with its huge size, Russia's trains are a vital way to travel. In 2019, they had about 1.1 billion rail passengers. That's a massive number, showing how much their train network is used. Also, France. France is famous for its super-fast TGV trains, and they also move a ton of people. In 2019, France had an estimated 1.8 billion rail passengers. Now let's check out the statistics for the United States. For 2024, Amtrak, which handles most of our long-distance passenger trains, it carried around 32 million passengers. If you combine both intercity and commuter trains, the US gets to under 600 million rides annually. That's a tiny fraction compared to China, to Russia, or France. Yet we have way more people than France and Russia. So why do passenger trains totally suck in America these days? It's kind of wild because it actually used to be the exact opposite. The United States was once the world leader when it came to trains. We had incredible train networks and gorgeous train stations. Honestly, most of the major cities in the United States we know today, like San Francisco, Chicago, St. Louis, they probably wouldn't even exist if it weren't for trains. To understand why passenger trains are lagging behind in America today, you have to go back to the 19th century. The United States railroad boom kicked off in the early 1800s. In 1827, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad became the country's first common carrier, meaning it was open to the public and not just a private operation. That line marked the beginning of a huge transformation in how Americans moved people and goods. Railroads quickly started popping up across the East Coast and beyond. By the mid-1800s, you could travel from New York to Chicago or beyond with far more ease than ever before. Before trains, crossing the country meant months in a wagon through harsh weather, rough terrain, and there was this constant risk of breaking down or of illness. But once the first transcontinental railroad was finished in 1869, a trip from coast to coast could be done in under a week. That was a game changer for both everyday travel and national identity. Suddenly the United States felt more connected. Railroads created whole communities. Towns didn't just pop up randomly. Many cities popped up specifically because a train line ran through them. Businesses were built around train depots. Crops and goods could be shipped more efficiently. And some cities like Chicago owe much of their existence and their importance to major train junctions. So trains weren't just a mode of transport. They were the backbone of American growth. From the 1880s to the 1920s, American passenger rail hit its peak. This was the golden age when railroads were not just practical but prestigious. Luxury trains like the 20th Century Limited and the Super Chief became symbols of style and status. Dining cars served gourmet meals. Sleeping cars offered real comfortable beds. The surface was impeccable. And the stations, think of Grand Central Terminal in New York or Union Station in Washington. These buildings were designed to impress. They had marble columns, vaulted ceilings, ornate clocks, incredible staircases. They weren't just transit points. They were civic monuments. They were something that brought pride to the people of this country. And it wasn't just for the elite. Middle-class Americans used trains regularly. It was affordable, it was practical, and fast. So where did it all go wrong? Well, a few things happened. First, the rise of the automobile. With mass production of cars, especially after the introduction of the Ford Model T, Americans had a new way to travel. Cars gave people freedom. You could go wherever you wanted, when you wanted, without relying on fixed schedules. Plus, as more roads were built, driving became more convenient, especially for people outside major cities. But the rise of cars wasn't just organic. It was also backed by powerful industry lobbying. The automotive lobby, including car manufacturers and oil companies, tire producers, they had massive influence in Washington. These groups pushed for policies that favored highways over railways. They lobbied for subsidies, promoted car ownership as patriotic. So if you didn't have a car, you weren't living the American dream. That was part of the American dream, to buy a car. Meanwhile, the economy also shifted towards car manufacturing. Massive auto plants in Detroit and in other cities sprung up, employing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. It became a symbol of American strength, of American innovation. More jobs, more investments, and more consumer products meant more political weight as well. Then came the Great Depression and World War II. Railroads were nationalized during the war effort, and much of the system was geared toward military transport. After the war, people wanted something new, something modern, and that's when airplanes became popular. Air travel exploded in the 1950s and 60s. Jet travel was fast, it was glamorous, and it was becoming more and more affordable. The federal government also poured money into building airports and developing the aviation industry. But arguably, the biggest blow came from the government itself, and it was the creation of the interstate highway system in 1956. Funded by federal dollars, it provided coast-to-coast highways that made car travel easier and more appealing. At the same time, railroads received almost no more public subsidies. This created a heavily tilted playing field. Highways and airports were funded, railroads were ignored. It was a policy decision heavily influenced by lobbying and also by just a shift to a more car-centric American dream. By the late 1960s, most private passenger train service in the US was just unprofitable. And in 1971, the government stepped in and created Amtrak to preserve some semblance of a national rail service. Amtrak today is underfunded, it's often forced to rent tracks from freight companies, and while it keeps some long-distance routes alive and does relatively well in the Northeast Corridor, it doesn't come close to the scale or quality of what existed during the Golden Age. Outside a few corridors, train travel in the US is slow, it's inconvenient, unreliable, routes are limited, delays are common, amenities are minimal, and this didn't happen by accident. It was the result of powerful choices made over decades. The federal government chose to fund highways and airports, but not railroads. Big auto companies and oil corporations worked hard to make sure America ran on cars. And it worked. Car ownership boomed and road construction boomed, while trains were left to fend for themselves. Think about it, cars got free roads, airlines got modern airports, but trains, they have to maintain their own tracks and compete for funding. So basically, trains just got sidelined, and now we deal with the fallout. Endless traffic jams, crowded airports, air pollution, travel that's more stressful and less efficient. Most Americans have never experienced what a modern train system can actually do. It can be fast, it can be reliable, it can be comfortable, it can connect cities and towns without hassle, but it requires serious investment and leadership. We've done it before. We've built we used to have one of the most advanced rail system in the world, and we could possibly do it again. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you're going to like this one here or this one here. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.